Now that the spiritual premise for the creation of the physical universe has been established, let's consider the process itself. The readings state that the first cause moved, and worlds, suns, stars, nebulae, and whole solar systems came into being. This all sounds strikingly familiar to the Big Bang theory of creation that is currently accepted by most scientific cosmologists. One of the most significant aspects of the Big Bang theory is that it coincides nicely with the concept of a creator. If there was a beginning, there may have been a beginner, the first cause. Other models of how the universe came to be are not so compatible with the premise of a spiritual first cause. For example, the steady-state model asserts that the universe has always been as we see it now. There was no creation or creator. Another competing model is the oscillating universe approach. In this view, the hypothesized Big Bang is just part of a larger cycle of expansions and contractions, much like the universe breathing in and out. Like the steady-state model, the oscillating universe model does not require a beginning or creator as such. These relatively static models of the universe do not necessarily rule out the presence of a creator or first cause. Conveniently, they do relieve scientists from dealing directly with the issue. More importantly, to those favoring the biblical account of creation, the Big Bang is much more compatible with the Genesis version of creation that has a beginning. The similarities between the Big Bang model and the biblical creation story has caused some scientists to be cautious in accepting the Big Bang approach. Breakthroughs in astronomy and physics during the past 2 decades have provided convincing evidence of a cosmic explosion about 13 billion years ago that has resulted in what we perceive as the physical universe. At some point in your science education, you probably heard the atom compared to a solar system. The image of the sun with its orbiting planets is a simplistic, albeit effective, model for the nucleus and orbiting electrons at the atomic level. Just as likely, your science teacher quickly pointed out how crude such an analogy really is, considering the forces involved, the scale, and so forth. A more sophisticated explanation describes the orbits, that is, the shells in which the electrons move, as a cloud. Interestingly, solar systems are probably formed in the gaseous clouds of interstellar nebulae. Whereas the positive electrical charge of the protons within the nucleus are essentially balanced by the negative charge of the electrons, the dynamics of the solar system involve a balance between the imposing forces of gravity and momentum. Thus, at these vastly different levels of reality, each system involves the interaction of opposites. The Casey readings insist that this is all part of the unity of force, that is the very nature of the creative energy called God. In the beginning of the creation of the physical universe, the duality of attraction and repulsion at the atomic level, and also eventually at the cellular level, the microcosm, formed a nebulous activity. This fundamental movement is an expression of the first cause, or God, in the physical universe. The same dance of positive and negative forces magnified astronomically, the macrocosm, is the means by which worlds, suns, stars, nebulae, and whole systems come into being from the first cause. The Oriental concept of the Tao, portraying the opposing forces of yin and yang, is a wonderfully evocative symbol of the creative dynamic we are describing here. The exquisite sense of movement and balance of complementary opposites suggests the motivative force of the first cause in the physical universe at all levels, from atomic to interstellar. In truth, there is only one force expressing itself in motion and harmony throughout all of creation. The original Latin meaning of the word nebula is mist or cloud. Astronomers have found this to be a useful term for describing the numerous clouds of gas and dust in the interstellar space. The various nebulae are thought to be breeding grounds for new stars. The intense radiation given off by these spectacular interstellar nurseries causes the surrounding gases to glow with an ethereal luster. Edgar Cayce discussed the formation of nebulae within the broad context of creation and the laws that operate at all levels of physical reality, from interstellar space down to the atomic level. The readings used the phrase, "mists that are gathering," to indicate that the nebulous creative process that is the source of stars and solar systems is still active. With the creation of the physical universe and the involvement of souls in the realm of matter, the experience of time and space came into being. As with most mystical traditions, the Cayce readings consistently maintain that time and space, as we know it, do not really exist. When asked directly if time and space exist apart from physical consciousness, Cayce replied in the negative. He went on to explain that physical consciousness uses the divisions of space and time for soul development, in patience. Patience is that essential quality of the soul that places the experiences of time and space in its proper spiritual perspective. In patience, the soul possesses itself. Some readings even describe physical reality as a triune, consisting of time, space, and patience. Thus, the physical universe and the experience of time and space becomes the classroom in which the soul gradually awakens to its spiritual heritage. That is the meaning of patience. The illusion of time and space serve a spiritual purpose. From the perspective of spirit, there is no time but now. Everything is happening in the eternal present. Or to put it another way, there is no time, it is one time. Likewise, there is no space, there is one space. Thus, from a spiritual perspective, time and space are relative. To explain how time and space are related to the realm of spirit, the Cayce reading strongly endorsed a book by the Russian philosopher and mathematician P.D. Ouspensky. Tertium Organum was published in 1912, a time of revolution in physics and metaphysics. Most notably, Albert Einstein published his special theory of relativity in 1905 and his general theory of relativity in 1916. Einstein's radical ideas resulted in the integration of space and time into space-time, in which time is regarded as a fourth dimension, in addition to the three spatial dimensions of width, height, and depth. Einstein also realized that time and space are relative rather than rigid. Time can speed up or slow down. Space can be warped. On the metaphysical front, philosophers with a mystical or occult bias were writing books that paralleled some of the ideas of Einstein and the radical physicist. Buck's Cosmic Consciousness sought to provide a psychological basis for mysticism as a progression in human evolution. Ouspensky's Tertium Organum covered all these topics using mathematical models and theosophical concepts based on his own mystical experiences. The subtitle of Ouspensky's book, A Key to the Enigmas of the World, bespeaks the ambitious scope of his work. The primary thrust of Tertium Organum is that reality has a spiritual basis. Much of the book is a rant against positivist, that is materialist or reductionistic science that assumes that material reality is all that is. Ouspensky argues for higher dimensions of reality, spiritual realms, that can be understood by analogy. The first level of analogy is that of one-dimensional reality, represented by points on a line. For a point moving along a line, the past and present, points behind and ahead, do not exist. An observer with a two-dimensional or greater consciousness will see that the past and future do indeed exist once the point is moved. Since timelines are commonly used to represent history, the implication is obvious: simultaneous time. The past is still happening, the future is already happening. As Casey put it, all time is now. It is only the movement through space that gives the illusion of the passage of time. Ouspensky uses the same logic to explain how a three-dimensional consciousness would perceive a two-dimensional reality, a surface plane, and how a fourth-dimensional awareness views three-dimensional reality. The conclusion is that what we regard as time is actually a misperception of a fourth dimension of space. The experience of time is the result of the limitations of the body's sensory system. In Casey's view, time is simply a construct of physical consciousness to allow the soul to operate in material reality. Ouspensky's integration of time into space closely resembles Einstein's space-time. Similarly, the subjectivity of the observation is the basis for relativity. Not surprisingly, many of Einstein's ideas have been interpreted as having a mystical quality, a notion that Einstein himself expressed at times. One obvious implication of conceptualizing time as a spatial dimension is the possibility of psychic phenomena such as precognition and retrocognition. Foreseeing the future is the basis for prophecy. Similarly, some psychics claim to be able to enter an altered state of consciousness and describe past events. Ouspensky complicates the matter by suggesting that the problem with prophecy is that there may be multiple possible futures, just as there may be more than one present and past. With everything happening at once, it is the narrow slit of our sensory perception that allows us to selectively tune into only one version of reality. The movement of that slit of perception through the dimensions of space is what we call the experience of time. Theoretical physicists have also considered the possibility of multiple dimensional reality and simultaneous time. Science fiction writers have translated such theories into time travel and alternate realities that coexist within the dimensions of space-time. We will revisit the concept of multidimensional reality later under the heading of string theory.